Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, The College Process. Once again, I'm Ed from Principia Prep, and today we're going to be going over dealing with multiple students going to college at the same time. But before we begin, if you are new to the channel and are looking for additional college content, please hit the subscribe button down below. It will notify you when new videos do come out. As well as when you do enjoy today's video, please leave us a like and a comment. It does help the channel. As well as we are still running the James Jerusalem Memorial Scholarship. If you're looking for scholarship money out there to help your students going off to college, very simple. Here at Principia, every year we give out thousands and thousands of dollars in scholarship funds. If you want to be eligible for our scholarship program, very simple. In the description down below is the video for the James Jerusalem Memorial Scholarship. So down below in the description, watch the video. It'll let you know how we give out scholarship money every year. As well as also down in the description is also our Venmo, as well as the organization's Buy Us Coffee, if you want to help support the channel, allowing us to keep making these college videos for you guys out there. And all that being said, let's jump right into today's video. Dealing with multiple students in college at the same time. Now, as many of you may know or may not know, just a little while ago, the FAFSA reform made a huge change that basically threw everything up in the air and made a lot of parents, especially those who had multiple students going to college at the same time, or students essentially overlapping in college at the same time, very nervous. From the perspective that the FAFSA came out and said, we're no longer considering as a discount for you guys out there if you have multiple students in college. And the way it used to work before the FAFSA change came into place was if you had one student going off to college, let's say, and you filled out all the financial aid forms like the FAFSA for the college, asking essentially that we're looking for financial aid consideration and help. And let's just say that based on all your income and assets and everything else as a family, the FAFSA came back and said you're able to pay $10,000 towards the cost of college. Now let's say you had a second student coming in at the same time, or maybe a year later, let's call it, but an overlap was going to happen. When that second student came in, what the FAFSA would do is it would take your $10,000 number, your ability to pay the $10,000 number, and cut it in half. So essentially what would happen is student number one would be asked to pay $5,000 towards the cost of college, and student number two would be asked to also pay $5,000 towards the cost of college. Combined, they equal that $10,000 number you had just for the one student. So what that basically did was, now that each student is only being looked at to be able to pay $5,000, it increased the space available for each student to get more financial consideration at whatever college they went to. Now the FAFSA has now unfortunately gotten rid of that. So whether you have one student going in, or two, or three, or four, the first student is $10,000, the second student is $10,000, the third student is $10,000. Everyone's number is basically the same. And obviously a lot of families out there think now, unfortunately, the discount is now gone. No matter if I have one, two, three, etc. students in school at the same time, I no longer get a discount. But it's not actually the way it works from this perspective. The first thing you all have to understand out there, in the world of financial aid, there's essentially three different people giving you financial aid assistance: the federal government, the state, and the colleges. And each one of these three guys here have their own pool of money to give you guys financial assistance from. Now the way it works is the FAFSA got rid of the FAFSA federal money discount consideration, where the states, many of them that do give out financial assistance if you stay in state, as well as the colleges, a lot of them as well, also kept the discount in place for their own institutional funding consideration. So how do we now as parents, as families out there, sending multiple students to college, figure out what should we do in this entire process? And it's very simple, to be honest with you. All the families out there watching this video here will fall into basically three different categories if you have multiple students that going to college at the same time. Category number one will be that both students go to generous colleges. Category number two will be that one student goes to a generous college, one goes to a not so generous college, so it kind of evens out the situation. In the third situation you really want to stay away from is that both students go to non-generous colleges. And the way to figure this out is very simple, by the way. It's very easy. It's what I talk about in almost every one of my financial aid videos here, my videos talking about the finance aspects of college. And it's figuring out your students' college list correctly. And what I mean by that is, many of the families out there that I deal with, and I deal with thousands and thousands and thousands of families every year, and many of you guys unfortunately out there figure out the college list for your students incorrectly from the point of view of, you look at it just as, what is their major, what kind of campus do they want, culture, size, etc., what location, and what makes sense for my student academically speaking, of where they'll think they'll thrive academically at what college. Which is a fine way of putting your college list together, which is basically, by the way, how most people put their college list together is, find the school that has your major, which is the most difficult to get into, and then build down from there, which is not a bad way of starting off, let's call it, building your college list. And then of course you guys go out and do your college tours, you open houses and everything else, and the student falls in love with it. And then later on, months and months down the road, you think, Okay, now that we're thinking about paying for it, let's talk about financial aid, which is the wrong way of doing this, especially if you have multiple students in school, because now you have multiple situations of basically tens of thousands of dollars in play here. So you really have to think about building your college list the correct way, which is, yes, figure out the schools that have the right majors and the areas and locations you want to be at, but also consider with that group, who's going to give us financial aid assistance on the free money, grants, scholarships, etc. That's what you also have to incorporate into this. And the easiest way of doing it is very simple. Once your student has created a list of schools they're interested in going to, whether it has a major, doesn't have their major, it's just whatever list they have, let's call it, the next thing you need to do is plug every one of those schools into Google and start doing each one of their net price calculators. And it's very simple, by the way. And the reason you want to do the school's net price calculators is because these are the golden ticket for you guys, especially if you're looking at sending multiple students to college at the same time. Because the net price calculators, which you can do at any time, whether the student's a sophomore in high school, a junior in high school, a senior in high school, at any point in time you can do the net price calculators to figure out financially what each one of these schools would do for you guys as far as giving you financial assistance on the free side, the grants and scholarships. So the key for all of you guys out there, especially the multiple students and college families out there, is doing the net price calculators to figure out if one student goes to this college and they're generous, I got to make sure the second student goes to a similar type of college on the generosity side. I'm not talking they have to go to the same exact college, but a school that's usually as generous or maybe even more generous than this first school was. And the reason you do these things is to make sure you have a peace of mind. And all these net price calculator links, by the way, they're going to all ask you basically 10 to 15 questions. They're very straightforward. They want the student's name, major, when they're applying, and then they will right into the financial questions. Does a student work? How much do they make? How much do they have in checking, in savings, investments, etc.? And I'll ask the same question of the parents. And the benefit of doing all these net price calcs for every school your student's looking at is you'll know right off the bat before your student even applies, or before in some cases you do any open houses or college fairs and they fall in love with the school, you can know from the parent's point of view, the family unit point of view of sending the student here, will the school be generous or not? And the reason it's so beneficial for multiple students in school at the same time is all these net price calculator forms will ask you, how many students do you have in college going off next year? So what you're going to notice is for a lot of these colleges, especially the higher tier schools and more expensive schools, the private universities, they're very generous. So in some cases, when you see a price tag starting off of $80,000, $90,000, even $100,000, it won't bother you that much because the reality is the starting price in some cases is irrelevant to you, especially if you have multiple students overlapping in school. The benefit here in many cases for families that have a large family size of students going off to college at the same time is also your income can keep rising. You'd be surprised, but if you look at certain private colleges, if you have 2 or 3 students going to college at the same time overlapping, my overlap will help me with the more expensive schools. Now, obviously, right off the bat, I'm looking at any school list my students give me, and I'm going right to the net price calculator to figure out, is the school going to be generous or not? Because once again, of the 3 categories you can fall into, where they both go to non-generous schools, or one goes to a generous school and the other one doesn't, or the third option is obviously they both go to generous schools, that's what you're trying to accomplish. To make sure that whatever school we choose is going to be generous for us. And the way to do that is do the net price calculators before you guys apply. Because creating the college list and then visiting, having the student fall in love, and then months and months down the road doing the financial aid forms and hoping and seeing if maybe it works out is not the right game plan anymore, especially considering many schools nowadays at the private level and the elite and sub-Ivy League level schools, let's call it, they're all starting essentially at $80,000 and above. So if I'm looking at an $80,000 or $90,000 situation or a $100,000 investment here for my student to go off to college, I have to know there's financial benefits here to help reduce the cost to make it feasible, especially if I have multiple students coming on behind, and if they're overlapping, obviously a bigger deal, because if I have 2 $100,000 colleges and neither one's helping out, then I don't know if it makes sense to send my student off to a $200,000 situation. Obviously every family is different, but things to consider and think about. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please leave us a like and a comment. It does help the channel. On the screen right now is my contact information. If you guys need financial assistance in the financial aid process or admissions assistance in the college process whatsoever, I do help out families with both. On the screen is my cell phone number. Text message is the fastest way to reach me, or you can also email me. Those are the 2 quickest ways to reach me if you need to do a meeting. Other than that, thank you once again for watching today's video. My name is Ed from Principia Prep.